President Murafushi, Honorary Dr. Toyama, Dr. Brown, ladies and gentlemen, I am honored to be invited to give a Tana lecture and so pleased that this has come to Japan for the first time and is being given here in your university, a university for women. The Tana lectures are a marvelous thing, and they are about the values we hold to be important in our societies. Certainly the values and beliefs that our two countries, and others of course, hold on gender equality are hugely important to the position and the leadership roles that women can achieve. We have, of course, come a long way in many countries of the world, but there's still much to be done. Much of what I will tell you this afternoon comes from surveys, from reports, from government reports, some reports from universities, books, some of a popular nature, newspaper commentary, and speaking to both men and women. All have provided me with an invaluable insight. And I will say at the end just very little about my own career. So I just put the content of the lecture on this slide, and I will try and cover it in that order. The first thing I wanted to start with was the equality survey done by the Fawcett Society in the United Kingdom. In 1866, Millicent Fawcett and other campaigners delivered the petition for the suffragettes, for the women suffragettes to Parliament. You can see it took till 1918 for the first woman to be elected to Parliament in the UK, and it took until 1970 for the Equal Pay Act. And this is a survey, a very recent survey, of what it's like now. What does the United Kingdom think about gender equality now? Well, you can see the poll had good news of support for gender equality. 83% overall, rather less among those who recruit workers, but only 7% of the people describe themselves as feminists. If we look at these results in slightly more detail, you can see, and it's very encouraging, that 9 in 10 men wanted the women in their lives to have equality of opportunity with men. Support for equal opportunity, you can see, was higher among older men. 39% of men believed that society would benefit if men and women were equal. But 6 in 10 people believe that men in top jobs won't make room for women unless they have to. But on the whole, I think we can say that people want equality for women and men. It would be good for the economy, but 62% believe that more needs to be done to achieve this. And I believe that more needs to be done in both the United Kingdom and in Japan, and of course in many other countries. It was interesting in this report, and I felt it important to discuss it, the perception of binary gender identity. You can see there that 44% of people think that gender is not binary, but can be expressed as a range of identities. And this is something that is certainly coming to the fore in many women's universities, particularly in the USA. Women, young people particularly aged 18 to 34, and feminists, as you can see there, are more likely to agree that gender can be a range of identities. And we, of course, in our universities have to consider this and embrace what we think would be appropriate for our own organization. Women's economic power is, as many of you will know, really dependent on whether women receive a good education. And this is a study from the Judge Business School and the University of Cambridge that came out last year, authored by a woman professor, Susheta Nakami, and it studies the factors that affect women's rise. And you can see there that the years that women spend in education and being in the labor force, so having to leave the labor force would be a negative thing, have the greatest impact on women being able to be in the boardroom. And that, of course, is a reflection of women's economic power in society. A country's values and beliefs, as I said earlier, on gender, egalitarianism, humane orientation, and assertiveness are very big influences. This is an interesting and I think important report. In that report, I looked at the figures for Japan and for the United Kingdom. And this is looking at female board membership against female economic power. As you can see in this slide, we are rather better than Japan. Japan is there, it is just above India and China. But both the United Kingdom and Japan have a long way to go in terms of putting women onto boards. Of course, I personally think that one should think about targets. I don't really want to mandate anyone to have to put women onto boards. I'd like there to be some targets set, but not mandation. Britain has improved. We were lower than that, and that's in part because we have something called the 30% Club, and that is a very powerful movement, a movement by women with the support of men to get more women onto our FTSE 100 boards. And we have, in the latest report from government that came out just recently, we now have 25% of women on our boards. So I thought it is a reflection of the economic power of women. As you'll see in this slide, women now can go to the top. Women and men study and work and live together. And you don't have to be a truly extraordinary woman to have a successful career. A successful career is open, I hope, to many, many women. Women are good at exams, and I think formal credentials, as they become more important, women will definitely benefit. This slide and the next one comes from a book called The X Factor by Alison Wolfe, a professor at the London University. And as she said, women are the majority of university students in so many institutions. And for 15% of women, this means a life increasingly like men in the United Kingdom. But I want us all to remember that for the 85% who are left, life is highly gendered. They do not do as well. They do not hold the same type of jobs that we are privileged to hold. And if you look at the evidence that Alison presented, you can see there that 92% of women work as registered nurses. 89% of women are in nursing homes working as aides or psychiatric homes working as aides, not fully qualified nurses. And 90% of maids, housekeeping cleaners are women. These, of course, are lower status, lower paid jobs. And I want us to remember that they are still predominantly done by women, because for the rest of the lecture, I'm not going to particularly talk about these women, but they are important and we should be helping them. Certainly in the United Kingdom, inequality is growing faster among women than men. And I suppose that's inevitable because women, more of our women, are moving up the career ladder. But I think we have a lot to do to help those women who are in lower status, low-paid jobs. And it is, of course, interesting that many of our women who are graduates remain childless. Alison Wolfe, in this book, asked the question, the very provocative question, should women, out of sisterhood, so in supporting the lower status, lower paid women, be more helpful women and not strive for the top? I would disagree with that. I want my women to strive for the top, but I would also like a better life for those 85% of women who are lower status and lower paid. I want to really go back to schooling, and I'm very pleased that there are so many schoolgirls up in the top there. I can just see you, so you're very welcome, and I'm very pleased you're here. This is taken from the OECD report on gender equality, and it's quite a recent report, 2015, and it's focusing on teenage girls' choice of subject. And I am sure this happens certainly in the UK, I suspect it happens in Japan. The assertion we must make, I think, is there's no naturally born difference in ability, but somehow, as they go through schooling, boys seem more confident of their abilities, they're less anxious about performance, and they often go for it. I often tell women, please go for it. You may fail, but you will recover, and you can have another go. So boys seem to do this better than girls. I think parents have got a great responsibility to make sure their children get equal opportunity and encouragement. It's so easy to give girls dolls to play with and boys engines that we're already stereotyping women and men. And of course, unconscious bias still persists. The evidence shows that parents expect a son to be more successful in science, even when their daughters have got better grades. A CV that is said to be for a man is rated higher than the same CV said to be for a woman. This is unconscious bias. And women who state their sex at the start of a test do worse. This is taken from the newspaper, The Times. This was in September of last year. Dame Athene Donald is the Master of Churchill College in Cambridge and a professor of experimental physics, and very, very interested in women and their progress to the top. And what she said in the paper is, we stereotype by what toys young boys and girls are given. If girls always play with dolls and worry about their hairstyles and making tea, how can they imagine themselves to be chemists or engineers or mathematicians. It's interesting if you look at British schools, half of our mixed-sex schools send no girls to do our physics advanced level examinations, the examinations which are so important in going to university. And yet, at single-sex schools, they're 2.5 times more likely to do this. So I think that is an important difference. And then work experience is so often gendered. Girls to a hairdressing salon, boys to the local vehicle garage. So I think we do need to be very aware of this often unconscious stereotyping very early on when young people are at schools. And if it is true that boys become more confident than girls, then we do need to build confidence in the young. And that would be one of my messages today. Do not leave it until young women are at university. You can do it so much earlier. I think many girls learn to avoid taking risks and making mistakes. They actually want to be perfect. And yet many psychologists believe that the ability to take risks and have failure and still persevere are essential to confidence building. And there are very good examples of this in the book, The Confidence Code, which I've just put on this slide. Boys often tend to absorb scolding and punishment at school, and in that process, they learn to take failure in their strides. Girls are perhaps not often scoffed and scolded as much. And girls and boys seem to get different patterns of feedback. Boys' mistakes attributed to a lack of effort. If they just made more effort, all would be all well. And girls see mistakes as reflecting on their deeper qualities. And I very much relate to that. I can remember how much I thought my mistakes was something to do with me, the inside of me, and that I was to blame. So I think very early on, we need to be making changes. I think it's a bit stuck. So thinking about women and higher education beyond the school, it's true to say that women worldwide are going on to higher education. Of course, in many places, it is still the preserve of the elite. Indeed, some warn against the feminization of education and the apparent alienation of men from schooling, which is, I think, an interesting comment. In many industrialized countries, women are now a majority of university students, but not in our science subjects, so science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, which we call the STEM subjects. However, they may be going to university. They may get a first degree, they may get a PhD, but the female proportion of faculty posts, as I will show you a little later, is still very poor. Academic progression for women is still poor in many countries, and as you will see, it's worse in the sciences than in the humanities. I thought I should say a few words about our colleges and indeed about how women progress in education. So if we think about it, it was the 19th century where higher education really developed for women. And as you know, in the USA, there are the 7 sisters colleges, and you can see there Vassar and Wellesley, liberal arts, they were granting their own degrees. In Britain, universities beyond Oxford and Cambridge, who are very old, and of course Oxford is older than Cambridge, started admitting women. And my own university, Bristol, is now about 108 years old. In Japan, Tokyo Women's Normal School was founded in 1875, graduating its first graduates in 1879, and establishing this university in 1949, with full degree programs up to the doctoral level. And I very much like what is your motto, the things that you are trying to do here, a place where all women are motivated to learn and can realize their earnest dreams. What about the women's colleges in the University of Cambridge? The first one was founded in 1869, was Girton College. My own college, Newnham, was founded in 1871. There were 2 women's colleges within the University of Cambridge at that time. All other colleges were then male. In 1881, women students were allowed to sit the same examinations as the men, but I think it is a disgrace that Cambridge did not give women degrees until 1948. And Oxford, I must say, was much better than this. In 1972, other colleges began to admit women, and now all Cambridge colleges, including Girton, are mixed, apart from Newnham, Murray Edwards, and Lucy Cavendish, and all of the colleges in Oxford are mixed. So we're a rare breed. There are very few women's colleges for higher education in the United Kingdom. What do I want for my women in Newnham? I want it to be a place where women can develop their full potential and self-confidence, and I want them to leave Newnham with aspiration and ambition for leadership. And I have to help them to do that. And I also know that I am going to be asked eventually to address these transgender issues. Biology is not so binary on male or female as it once was. And what does it mean to be a woman's college in an era of changing understanding of gender identity? All of the USA Seven Sisters colleges now admit transgender students. As you can see there, I've quoted from Mount Holyoke and Wellesley. Wellesley will consider for admission any applicant who lives as a woman and consistently identifies as a woman. And you can see there too the quote from Mount Holyoke. So I just put that there for your consideration. I want to talk now for a little bit about how well women do in Cambridge University. We only take the very brightest students. Female students there, you can see, are 46% of all undergraduates, less in the science subjects, 36% in the stem cell subjects, and 58% in the humanities and social sciences. And they're 45% of all of our postgraduates. Women enter the University of Cambridge as undergraduates with exactly the same academic achievements as men. But I draw your attention to this, that when it comes to the final examination, which we call the tripos, our men consistently do better than our women. This is not just 1 year. I looked back 15 years, and it is exactly the same. Women do rather better in gaining an upper second, and when it comes to class 2 and the second division, there is not much difference. So I think it would be fair to say that 20% of women in Cambridge gain a first-class result, and 29% of men get a first. And this is true in almost all subjects. So why is this? What is happening? It really shouldn't be like this. So what underlies these differences? Is it that early stereotyping that I was talking about? What happens in the schools? Is it at school women are already losing their self-confidence, even though they're extremely academically bright when they come to us? Is it unconscious bias? Do our women find it difficult to take risks because they do very well in the second class in its first division, but why are they not just above that in the first class itself? Do they need to be a little bit more courageous in the examinations? Or are they trying all the time to be too perfect? Again, if we look at the book, The Confidence Code, what Kay and Shipman say is men don't let doubt stop them as women do. And if you are low in confidence, then you tend to be unable to take actions and you're reluctant to take risks. They said in this book, what doomed the women was not their actual ability to do well on the tests, it was their choice not to try. And I suspect that in the examinations in Cambridge, the men are a little bit more risky than the women. It's also true in our system of very one-to-one, one-to-two teaching, which is the classic way of teaching students in Oxford and Cambridge. Often a woman, if it's a mixed supervision, will not put her hand up first. Often the man speaks first. And that's true in meetings. Women risk. They risk being disliked or even worse. So I think, again, how do we get our women to change that? And how do we stop them being perfect? Often a woman will not answer a question unless she thinks she's got the absolute perfect answer. Or we edit a report exhaustively. I have just finished a report for our Prime Minister, and it's in its 21st version. I keep reading it. I keep looking at it. And I should know better by now. I'm a little bit better than I was when I was a young woman, but I must say I'm still pretty careful about editing, and I think it would be true to say I edit probably too exhaustively. Male colleagues will take risks where we often hold back, or we don't put ourselves up for the job we really think we could do. We wait for someone to ask us, but we shouldn't wait to be asked if we think we are really good enough. We fixate on performance, I think, and this tendency to be perfect is really rather the enemy of the good, and I think we waste many hours, and of course, we don't get as much done. I just wanted to tell you briefly what I've been doing in Newnham to try and help my women be confident, not need to be perfect, and to take some risks. And I've called it curriculum, the academic part of their work, into career, when they will leave us and go out to work. We have several things. I'm just going to tell you about one or two of them. We have career seminars in my home, the Principal's Lodge, in which we have a woman right at the top of her career and a woman who is perhaps 10 years out of graduation, so my students can see what it's like as you go through a career. We have courses on how you present your work and yourself. We have support from our alumni who come back and do interview practice, help with CVs and internships. I want to tell you about a program called Sprint, which I started in 2014. And I also want to tell you a little bit about a life skill course started only last year. I'm pleased to say we're working with the Careers Service in Oxford University on a program called Ignite. And that is a program about confidence courses for schools. So we are working in schools. But this is the Sprint program for women, which we do twice a year at the end and the beginning of a term. And it's about enabling a woman to know who she is. You will note there, I've put, who are you dancing for? Why are you doing something? Is it for your family? Is it for your friends? Is it for your teachers? Or is it for yourself? Because I believe it should be for yourself as you go through your development. You should be thinking what it is that you most want to do, because then you will be most likely to be good at it. So in this course, we try to build that personal power, appropriate assertiveness. We try to enable people to reach their peak performance. We want our young women to manage pressure. There's a lot of pressure in Cambridge, and for them to set some objectives for themselves and be able to network. And they have, in this course, to create an implementation plan. And then, just recently, a student said they would like a life skills course, and they told me the things they would like to have seminars on. I've just listed them here, and you can see they're quite varied. And one which is not on the list, but I thought very good, they wanted something that was about how you deal with failure and still stay motivated. So they were all choices made by our students. What is it like if you look at the academic staff? Well, I think you can see there that females are 20% of the academics in Cambridge, but only 16% of the professors. So women fall off quite considerably, and I know that that is true in Oxford, and it's not much better in the Russell Group, which is our very good universities like Bristol, Birmingham, Nottingham. And then if you look at the Equality and Diversity report from 2013-14 again, looking at females in the science subjects as compared to the humanities, you can see again the difference between the STEM, let me see if we can get it back, the STEM and the humanities. And this is something that the university is really quite worried about. We would definitely like to see more female academics in our STEM subjects. If you look at our university committees, then 25% of the women are female, and the University Council, I'm pleased to say, has 42% of female members. So what is it about promoting women through an academic ladder? What are the attitudes and beliefs about promotion to new jobs? Well, many women do not even perceive promotion as desirable. They often think it's undesirable. Is it going to be possible for them to lead? They seem to think they need aggressive political skills to be at the top of the ladder, and often they do not want to adopt that style. But female leadership does not have to be aggressive. There are many other ways of leading as a woman leader. And our Vice-Chancellor, who is on this slide, with Professor Athene Donald, who I mentioned before, were very important in putting together a book which we call The Meaning of Success. And this book was about the pathway to success for women who worked in the University of Cambridge. And he said that this must always be consistent with a woman's own belief, and it needed to provide fulfillment. And I'm pleased to say he's been extremely supportive of our endeavors. So what is the University of Cambridge doing to enable its women to become professors? It's doing a lot of very practical and, if you like, bureaucratic things. It's putting integrated and embedded governance structures. It's supporting at the most senior level within the university. We have university gender champions, and we have a senior gender equality network. There's commitment to a national benchmarking program, the Athena Swan Charter. I will tell you about that in a moment. And they've put some money into workshops, mentoring programs. And if you have been off work because you've had children, or maybe you've had caring responsibilities, there is a scheme which will help you get extra help, maybe an extra laboratory technician for a time while you write your next grant. This scheme has been particularly useful for our scientists, and they've given extra money to STEM. This is a national scheme that recognizes commitment to advancing the career of women. It was started to encourage women into science, as you will see there, STEM, higher education, and research. But last year, it covered all subjects. And currently, there are 137 Athena Swan members holding 536 awards. Cambridge is doing quite well. We're one of the 7 UK universities to hold a silver, as you will see there. But each department must have its own gender action plan, and then you have to deliver against that action plan. So this has been a national scheme that has been helpful. Many of our brightest graduates from Cambridge want to go into the civil service, and they want to go into the fast stream of the civil service, and they wish to become director generals or even permanent secretaries. So they have ambition. But as you will see from this slide, which is courtesy of the permanent secretary in the Department of Culture, Media and Sport, this is not actually happening. So the yellow line are the women, and the blue lines are the men. This is 2006, 2011, 2006, 2011 for females. And you can see that the fall-off is really quite early. Indeed, the fall-off is happening before women enter the senior level of the civil service. And yet these women are really bright women. So they're often leaving not fulfilling their potential. And the head of the civil service at home has been deeply troubled by this, and they are doing things about it. You can no longer have an all-male selection panel. They have put junior staff onto the panel, so it's actually useful to have a junior person who often favors a more diverse leadership style. All-male shortlists for senior posts are absolutely by exception only. And for those women who do not get the job, then there has to be now very careful and confidential feedback. They're also supporting women to get experience just outside the civil service by getting roles such as non-executive roles on boards, something to stretch them before they go for the interviews for these higher jobs. And they are certainly evaluating the talent schemes and its impact on women. So that is just our civil service. Mary Beard is a graduate of Newnham College, I'm delighted to say, and has a very public persona. And Mary gave a public lecture quite recently in which she said men's voices were deeper, more dignified, had more power than women's voices. So I'm not sure what my voice sounds like to you today, as whether it sounds as good as a man's voice. But she said, hearing a female voice, people don't hear the voice that connotes authority, nor a voice of expertise outside the traditional spheres that women have. Of course, women at home become ministers, but often it's education or health. We have never had a woman Chancellor of the Exchequer. And she said, how can we make this different? How can we make ourselves more aware of the prejudices that make us not listen to women? This is women in the UK Parliament. We have too few women in Parliament. I'm not sure what your figures are in Japan. We have 41% of women who work in firms that are in the associations of political consultants, but only 23% of our members of Parliament are female, and it used to be much worse. And this was reported quite relatively recently in The Guardian, and saying that really there needs to be updated working practices to change this. I particularly liked this report from the Harvard Business School because it talks to women's ambitions when they qualify, when they leave the Harvard Business School, but what actually happens to them. They said in this report that came from Harvard, it was in the Harvard Business Review, men and women start with similar goals. That shouldn't surprise us. Men are likelier to achieve. In America, it's not that women opt out to have children, but women advance more slowly because they do prioritize their family over their career. Men expect their career to take precedence over partners, and that so often happens. Women expected their careers to be as important to their husband or partner, but were often disappointed. So the conclusion from this particular report was that women consistently less satisfied than men with their careers and with this compatibility of work and family. Many of the women who left founded their own businesses, they did small business work. They didn't stop working, many of them, but they didn't get the job they had hoped they would get. Some of the solutions that were suggested in this review was that companies need to provide adequate re-entry points and full-time work for women who've taken a career break. Do not give a woman an easy, rather unimportant job when she comes back to work. You must give her a challenging job. You must make it feel that she is back at work and going to be fully back at work. And that so often doesn't happen. Companies also need to move beyond family-friendly policies in order to develop high potential women. And women really do want more meaningful work, more challenging assignments. And so I have to say to the gentlemen in the audience, we need to make you our real partners. For women to succeed in their careers, they need their husbands and their partners to be supportive and with them. Women in scientific careers, as I've mentioned earlier, are really something that we've worried about and do worry about in the United Kingdom. We need more STEM workers in the UK to help the UK economy. And I just wanted to bring to your attention the two recent reports, which are very worthy of reading. One in Nature, Women in Science, and the other in Lancet, Why Do Women Choose or Reject Careers in Academic Medicine? So we certainly have a challenge here. Entrepreneurship is important, as you know, and digital technology is all the rage. But if we have too few women in our STEM subjects, then it's a major bottleneck in getting women to become entrepreneurs. So we need our women in STEM in order for them to be entrepreneurs in digital technology. And fewer than 20% of venture-backed businesses have a female founder, although there are some exceptional women in this field. And when they do become entrepreneurs, they outperform their male peers, and women-led companies do significantly better than the average. So I think this is yet another reason why we want our women in STEM. And some of the suggestions there are for addressing this imbalance, changing our culture. This is not a genetic issue. This is absolutely a cultural issue. The young man, Matt Clifford, who's a wonderful entrepreneur and whose article was in the paper from which I took these two slides, I talked to Matt, and he said coding should be in our curriculum. Computer coding is okay, whether you're a boy or a girl. He said to me, the tech world is broader than you think. People narrowly define technology as programming, but there are other exciting disciplines in the digital industry. And he said, and I would agree, that what we need are more models, role models for young women, so that they can see technology as something that they can go into. And the confident women who are in this sphere, I think, need to help the young women who might follow them. If you look at engineering in the United Kingdom, we do very badly. At the moment, 9% of the UK, it's the lowest number of female engineers of any European country. The University of Cambridge, with the Institute of Civil Engineers and our Centre for Gender Studies, asked the question why. And they looked at social factors that affect career progression for women engineers. And women engineers are often more highly qualified, but get paid less. They're less satisfied with their careers. They often find when they go onto a construction site, they're the only woman. Several women engineers said to me, I would just like some more women on the site. I would like some women engineers with me. And often they get dissatisfied and they're more likely to leave engineering mid-career. And I really had to put this in because this is from America, the AECOM boss. He said he wanted 50% women in his company. And he said that's no different to that of what we expect of accidents on our site. We expect 0 accidents on our site. Why can I not have 50% women on our site? He said at the moment he had 20%. Finally, I'm just going to talk about medicine, really just to say that medicine is good news. We have meritocracy in medicine. Women go a long way. They choose subjects that are more people-orientated, as you can see on this slide. They choose general practice, public health. I just want to make one point, is women go very far, but as you can see here, they don't really go far enough into the top of British medicine. And to do that, you have to invest time and energy, you have to be resilient, and you have to expect competition, and you have to be single-minded. And therefore, the women that choose this route need encouragement and support. They need all the things I've talked about, which is self-confidence and risk-taking. Very, very finally, on that side, you will see a list of the things that I have done in my life so far, the sort of jobs that I have done. And during those years, which are very many, These are the things that I have needed to do. I have built my self-confidence. I do take more risks. I hope I've found courage when it's needed to be really difficult and stand my ground. I've built my networks. I've found my sponsors. I've had lots of failures, but I've wiped myself down and started again. And I hope that I've learned to use my leadership and my power wisely as a woman. That is the last slide. So begin in the home, continue in the school, continue at university to enable women right from the very beginning not to be stereotyped, to build their resilience and confidence, and to send them out into the world as women who can be powerful and who can lead. Thank you very much.